Good morning and welcome. I like the gong, Scott. This is Trust Your Gut, y'all. This is a little bit of a blessing. It's a podcast that we're going to put forward out of Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Michele Jones. I'm sitting here with Scott Collins today, and we're going to jump into what our mission is.
Good morning on this New Moon Eve.
I am a hypnotherapist. I'm also a colon hygienist, somebody that has worked with folks with their mind and with their gut. There are folks that actually hypothesize that your gut actually might be your first brain, not even your second brain. And that's something that we'll get into once we explore this a bit. But we have a little bit of a mission statement here at Trust Your Gut, y'all. And our mission is to empower individuals to actually embrace their inner wisdom, foster self-trust, and be able to make confident decisions through intuitively, instinctively knowing their higher selves. We believe that intuition is a valuable compass that helps people to navigate all of life's complexities and life's beautiful blessings. Our commitment for us here is to provide guidance, to create resources, and actually to support and help people unlock the potential of their instincts and to cultivate a deeper connection with their inner selves or their higher selves. Some people call it the inner voice, some people call it their higher self voice. But through education, which we're doing here together, encouraging the building of community, we're going to hope to promote that the belief in trusting your gut is a fundamental tool for personal growth, for resiliency, for completely understanding your self-worth, living a fulfilled life, right? And together, we're going to strive to make intuitive decisions, like starting this podcast, and making intuition and instinct an integral part of our daily life. Living authentically and living purposefully, right, my friend? That's right.
Yeah, and if we were to cliff notes our mission statement, something just to remember, you could even use it as a mantra, would be embrace your instinct. Embrace your authenticity, embrace your mystic.
Yes. So from instinct to intuition.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are not really sure what some of this stuff is, you know? And as a colon hygienist, I often hear people come into my office, and also as a hypnotherapist, people will say, you know, Michele, there's something that I have a feeling, an intuition about. I kind of feel it in my body. Sometimes I think about. And they're like, what do you think that is? And I think that a lot of what they're talking about is that which is them, part of them, but also a different part of them than the earth kind of self that we walk around. You know, did I stop for all stop signs? Did I turn off the oven when I left the house? I think that our intuition, for the most part, over the last 3.5 years in particular, has been somewhat bantered about. We were a little bit concerned as we were going through an experience of a pandemic that we didn't know, like initially what was going on. We were uncertain, and we were being told a lot, trust the science, trust the science. A lot of people felt very isolated and felt very abandoned. What was also happening is that internally there was a lot of things that were rising up within people, some really cool things that we learned about ourselves, also some jagged kind of parts that we realized we needed to smooth out. And I think that in this podcast, what we hope to do is to just explore what it is that we've all heard most of our life when somebody says, hey, what's your gut tell you about that? Just give me your gut answer. Or what is your gut like saying to you? And we've all heard this, but yet many of us have not really embraced that in our day-to-day living. And I think that the more that we do it, the better off that things actually can turn out.
Yes, it's a perfect opportunity. I think it's good to emphasize what we're trying to do is just help us, one another, and collectively remember. It's not that we're teaching something new. It's remembering what we innately are and have, and remembering our connection. It's almost a state of amnesia that we've been in collectively and individually. And right now, in this shift from Pisces to Aquarius, we're coming out of amnesia and we're remembering what it means to be intuitive and how to connect to that via instinct. Mm-hmm. We're remembering what mystic means, what that is, that we own that.
Yes, that's a word that a lot of people don't even know what mystic means. If we were in India and we were to say that word, people would know what we meant, right? For the most part. Yep. Here, it's not an integral part that going inwards, we're not really certain what that even is, which is part of why we're exploring this, right? Like we took yoga in the US, and what we did was we thought we can get really skinny from it, as opposed to creating like union, which is A-okay if that's a byproduct, whatever. I'm not going to judge anyone, but we distill things down sometimes, missing the essence in America because we're quick to cut to the chase, which is not always a bad thing, except in the case of yoga. But I do agree with you that the Piscean age, so just to back up for folks out there that might not even really be aware of what that is, because truly up till a few years ago, I wouldn't have even known what the Piscean age is. I would have been like the age of fish, like what? So I am going to let you, Scott, because supposedly the ages go in reverse, like the one before Pisces. I'm going to just try to show off my very minimal knowledge.
Yeah.
Right?
That's basically what that means.
So that's why we're going into the Aquarian age?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right. And that's mainly referring to Pluto's orbit, which is the longest orbit in the solar system. So you can think of shifts and changes that happen relating to the planets, Mercury, Venus, things that are closer to the sun. We experience what they bring to the table more regularly.
Yes.
Those are like more day-to-day.
So Pluto's
momentary
the planet
shifts, but Pluto
for the
is like
ages.
truly like an age. Like when you think of things, like nothing's the same afterwards. It is you've completely moved on.
I did not know that the ages were like governed by that. I've listened to a woman, Heather Ensworth. You can listen to her on YouTube. She talks about at the beginning of an age, we're in the integrity of that age. An age is about 2,000 years, I believe she says. Mm-hmm. And that like the first half of it, woohoo, we're all grooving. We're all like, cool, everything is great. And then somehow our human must enter in or something, the second half of the age, and it goes to you know what in a handbasket. Mm-hmm. And that's it. I guess that's like the die-off, if you will. So it's the death and the rebirth?
Yeah. And Pluto largely symbolizes that. That's one of its biggest meaning symbolically is death and rebirth. And it's why that shift happens in the way we experience time right now in 3D Earth. It's a bit of a gradual, lengthy shift.
Yes.
But then when it's done, it's like, whoa, what the fuck?
See, intuitively, using intuitions, I work with a lot.
What happened these last 2 years? That
really?
kind of thing. You know?
It totally did.
Yeah.
I see people, and you know this, Scott, because you know me, that are usually in their 20s, and I've seen people well into their 90s, right? So it's like a huge range. And the feeling of time, what I find really interesting is when the Gen Zers come in, right? I had a Gen Zer from Great Britain come in, and I don't want her to think it's the person I saw last week. It's not. I actually saw her a few months ago. And she asked me, she's like, hey, Michele, what do you know about quantum jumping? Because I feel like you're somebody that would know a lot about it. And I'm having a little challenge that when I do it, I kind of land in chaos. And I want to land with greater specificity. So could you help me to dial that in? So I can tell you this, as a Gen Xer, I'm just guessing, but other than you, I don't know many Gen Xers, my friends at least, that are going to ask me that question, which shows you that there's this new awareness, this new consciousness about intuition, about time. Because that's the whole thing, is that as we unpack what intuition even is, I think that we're noticing things feel, look, and sound a little bit different than they have before. Right?
Yeah,
People are just
without
like, what's
a doubt.
going on?
And it's also validating, I think, that the younger generations now that chose to come in on this timeline have chose to come in because there's more of a safety now to enter into the Earth School in this timeline with that awareness. They're just like born right into it. It's already part of their
But
algorithm.
I think we need them too.
which they understand.
I think that we need them too to continue this
it's all
journey.
necessary. For sure.
So Scott, you're, I know by degree, so by profession, you're a professional musician, you're an artist. He's also a really good tennis pro. So does a lot of things. But the thing that I wanted to ask you about physics that I really don't understand, I know that our planet is moving. We're moving through a sector of space right now that we have never entered before. Supposedly, the amount of light that's hitting our planet, and folks are talking about, what is that? Oh, you know what it is. They measure it in Italy with the light. It'll come to me. So the pH of our bodies is like 7.365. And legitimately, the same 7.365, it measures the amount of light that's hitting. And they can't even keep track of this anymore. It will come to me what it is. But can you explain how the planet moving in space with the light hitting it, like how is that affecting us? Because I don't think that I think intuitively people are like, yeah, something's a little different. It's time speeding up.
Yeah.
It's changing. What is going on?
Well, I mean, if you were to, I like analogies sometimes. And I mean, think about how plants behave differently based upon the light hitting them. And certain plants thrive in different conditions. And the planets are no different than that. Us individually are not. Each generation is waking up to this, just, again, remembering this innate knowledge that our bodies are like little solar systems inside of us. The plants are the same. And all you have to do is look at how a plant behaves with sunlight or lack thereof, water, energy. You could do a whole episode talking about the studies done with writing certain words, and it doesn't matter what language you're writing them on and putting them on a glass of water, and then looking at the molecular structure and how it behaves and how it affects that. So, illuminate. Yes.
I think that's really, folks are seeing things in different ways than they have before. They're also hearing things very, very differently. I think that people have intuitive awarenesses now about just polarization, division. One of the things that we're hoping and our intention by doing this podcast is to bring people together, right? To actually build community. For instance, when we were talking about this in some of the previous kind of practice runs that we've had, and just dialogue with our team, if you will. For me, my intuition, one of the few things I've ever been clear about, is that I actually feel a connection to a higher power first, intuitively, right? I call that God. Some people might call that Buddha. Some people might call that the Tao. Some people might call that Allah, right? Some people might call that Jesus. Whatever it is that people call a higher power, for me, when I say God, that's the only thing personally that I've ever been clear about. So that for me is how my channel came online. There's a story about that, but that I am not speaking from any position of authority. I'm barely the authority on me, right? And like Bob Marley said, I don't like presume to like condemn, and I don't want to convert. That is not what I'm here to do for anyone. So I want to talk about that in a very, very clear way, never to repel, but also I am pretty spiritual. That's been my barometer that I measure things against. And like we all have different intuitive barometers within us that we might not be aware of. I didn't know I had that one for a few decades until Tamara helped me to understand that that was actually my external authority. That was part of me. See, the thing that I didn't know was I knew God, but I didn't know the God in me. And so...
Yeah, and perhaps our intuition and instinct are the way for us to connect to that. I'll use two other words that people call it. Goddess.
Yes.
The higher self. And maybe that higher self is our non-physical meat suit, as you like to call it.
Yeah.
Expression of that, and it's the higher self is that actually fragmented part of goddess, God out there, and we're using our intuition and instincts. Our mysticism is when we are connected to it electrically, and that's how you can pick up on that with instruments, reading light, energy, and frequency. That's when we're connecting. That's when we're dialed in, which is what you experienced. It's when you dialed in.
I think that's...
Logged in.
Right, exactly. Checked in, tuned in. I feel like that's really for people because when I was uncertain about what to do when I was a kid or something, and I'd be like I'm not sure what I should do. You know, my father was very big on, what's your gut answer, Michele? And it was like this first answer. And those are the kinds of things that I think we've grown a bit of a hesitancy for in the last little while. At least I'm in awareness of that. And it seems as though something that we really should recoup back, right? Really reclaim this back, because our intuition, our instinct, I mean, so physiologically, right? Other than like your brain and your actual vertebrae, you have more nerve endings in your gut than anywhere else in the body. And so doing what I do as a colon hygienist and as a hypnotherapist, I can tell you that what we're consuming food-wise, when we're talking about plants, talking about our pH, we're a little bit off.
Yeah. And the good news is there are many modalities that can help us dial in. And because it is just a remembering. And what we're trying to do is get more into our gut. And what that means to me is getting into our body, getting into noticing feelings, whatever it is. You're going to learn what it is when you're dialed in. For some people, it might be a little goosebumps. It might be you feel something, a neural pathway in your brain, like your third eye just like swell up, wake up like an egg hatching. Not literally be in your gut. That can be different for all of us. But you're going to learn to be in the body.
Yes.
And feel when that ding, when you get connected.
And we all had experiences.
And it might take some routine.
Sure.
Because we definitely now are in a more beautifully complicated technological era. So learning little routines, and just like yoga, doing it daily, even for 5 or 10 minutes, can help you stay in that. Yeah, that's actually why yoga was created, to learn to be able to meditate longer. But there's there's no greater way to daily practice probably to help get into your connection to intuition.
And that really, our intuition, some people would say that is your soul self, right? That's the part of you that's actually eternal and is going to carry you well beyond just this meat suit.
Yes.
And I think that you just really touched on a couple of indicators that you might feel it in your body with the goosebumps or the God goosebumps. Like when I began listening to intuition, Tamara had shared with me, hey, run it through a question. Say aloud, who sent you? Or what is your message? And it feels quite artificial, but it actually evokes a response from within you. And those are the kinds of things that during this opportunity of having some intuitive time together, instinctive time together to explore what it is that makes us all mystics, all intuitive, that's to me the unifier amongst people. Is when you see folks that are down and out, folks that are super struggling, right? Because Lord knows we're seeing plenty of that in the world today. One thing that I can tell you is that they've lost their higher self. You know, when I was in divinity school, one of the things that I had done, I went to Vanderbilt and I had done some street ministry. And one of the things that I found very intriguing was just the act of sitting beside somebody, you know, and just showing up. And like we call that in the spiritual community, like holding space. And it's just creating a safe haven, if you will, and an opportunity to connect with another human being at a soul level, which I would say is an intuitive level, and really letting them know that there's something in them greater than this now moment. And together, we're willing to find that.
Oh, yes. As we move into the Aquarian age, we may realize that for many of us that it's congregations of one or two where we have the epiphanies, when we really connect and change, and that the impact, every singular light bulb that comes on us on the planet right now is massively impactful, because we're really nearing the tipping point of more than half the planet being conscious and awake. So every individual one is profound. Yeah, we don't need a congregation anymore of masses of people.
No, I think this is the new church. Like we are like the communal coming together. And I think that's why, excuse me, we felt a very strong need to do this. And this is a lot of work. Like I didn't realize how much when we started, but the benefit of it coming together in our highest self that we can muster up on that day and that time that we're together, learning about how we actually utilize that and synthesize that and integrate it into our experience, like an earth school, as we call it. I think that's a real game changer, because if we can operate from the highest vantage point within our soul's experience, that light that you were just talking about, Scott, only gets turned on brighter within us. And the more lights that are turned on, the brighter this place becomes. So with that said, we want to thank you for joining us during episode 1, our first real go at it. And I just wanted to say that at Trust Your Gut, y'all, this is where instinct meets intuition, but there's something very important to remember. Scott?
Remember, you are mystic.
You got to say it again for me with a little bit more gusto.
I'm just glad that's what you were hoping I was going to say. I wasn't sure what you're probing for.
I know you didn't know. No, you have your Midwestern Ted Koppel. I'm looking for a sexy and remember, you are mystic. Mm-hmm. But I can't do that, so I need you to do it.
You just did it.
No,
I'll say trust your gut.
Y'all,